Hi, this is our son, Everett, and he was born deaf.
He was born with bilateral sensory neural hearing loss. So Everett was found to be at the profound level. So without his cochlear implants, he does not really hear anything. They said that he might hear a lawnmower near his head as soft as a whisper. But beyond that, they can't really measure what he's truly able to understand. So as you can see, Everett here has cochlear implants.
That he got when he was about 9 months old. And he's still kind of growing and getting used to them.
We all are getting used to them.
I think today we're just going to discuss what our experience has been as new parents to a deaf child and what that's been like and some of the struggles that we face. Kind of start off like we found out that he was possibly deaf right at birth, probably the day after.
Yeah, so in Massachusetts we have a universal hearing screening. Every newborn child gets it. It's actually the most common disability. I'm not really sure how you want to label it. And so here in this state, they test for it within the second day of them being born. With Everett, they had told us that they thought maybe it was fluid in his ear because the first day he tested fine in one ear and not the other. And then they're like, oh, it's fluid. Usually it goes away. He came into the world very quickly, so he didn't have time for the pressure. And so they said, massage his ears and move the fluid, and we'll see you in 6 weeks. And so we really thought that's what it was. We had no inclination that he was deaf. And we thought, the fluid will go away. It seemed like there was times as a baby that he would hear us, but then other times not so much.
I specifically remember, just because it was a possibility that he was deaf, I specifically remember going up to his crib, or what was it, the bassinet, and just testing this theory out, because I have 2 kids previous to Everett, so I kind of know what to expect, and I remember just clapping as loudly as I possibly could, and he didn't flinch. And this was a sleeping baby.
Yeah.
And this was just to test my own theory. Obviously, I'm not clapping at infants. But this was just to test my own theory to see if what was being said was possibly true, and to kind of mentally prepare for what that was. But I remember going to Cassie and telling her that I did that, and it's almost like even after that you're just like, no,
there's a level of denial, and it's not, I don't mean that in like a shameful way. We love the deaf community. We're a part of it because of our son, and they're wonderful, wonderful people, and we've been welcomed with open arms. I'm getting emotional about it.
It's okay.
Because as a mom, when it could be anything that's wrong with your child, you have a level of guilt, and there's concern. You're thinking about their future and what does this mean, and there's so many questions that you get a little overwhelmed. And I think there was, for me at least, Tony not so much, because again, he kind of was really looking and knew, and I was in denial. I thought the fluid was gonna clear, and my son would hear, and I never for a second thought this would be our situation. I mean, again, bless the people who don't feel this way. I wish I could have not felt denial and trying to push it off, but there's definitely a level of that. I know, and Tony knows, and I'm sure every other parent knows the level of difficulty that any disability brings to their child's life, whether it's deafness, blindness, autism, ADHD, all of those things, they're significant. And so I knew that it meant a lot of change. And I think I kind of tried to push it back and think that it wasn't real. With Everett, the first 2 months of his life were really, really hard. I was in a dark mental space because he was hard.
Yeah, just to kind of comment on that, he was hard because he was deaf, and we weren't 100% sure of that. So very early on, we were like, we have this colicky kid, and nothing that we did, no matter what we did, was helping. He was, excuse our daughter, pretty much vomiting at every bottle.
Yeah, baby.
Abby took them off again.
It's okay, thank you.
He was vomiting with every bottle, and he was having such difficulty sleeping. He would scream throughout the night, and we later found out, I mean, not definitively, of course, but we're pretty sure that because he was deaf, anytime it was nighttime, we had the lights out, he would wake up in the middle of the night and just be extremely confused of what was going on because
terrified.
He couldn't hear, he couldn't see, and he was just alone. And that was something that we didn't realize that we were doing until we found out that definitively that he was deaf, and then we had to learn that in retrospect.
Yeah, so that was hard. But you have to go for a more in-depth hearing screening. It's basically a 3 to 4 hour long test. They do 3 different versions of tests. And at that appointment, this was just before the whole situation started in the world. And so I brought him. The baby has to be sleeping for pretty much the entire test, which is hard because he wasn't an easy sleeper at that point. And by the end of the test, the audiologist came in and told me with pretty much surety that he was profoundly deaf and what next steps to take. So I'm an advocate for people in need and for myself. And then now I have my son, who I basically have to get up, and it doesn't matter what's going on in my mind and in my space, and advocate for him because he can't advocate for himself. So I left that appointment, got right on the phone with early intervention. I got an appointment with them within the month, which isn't normal. Typically they take 3 months. And I had a follow-up appointment with audiology within a week because they had told me that intervention at that point was crucial, and they had initially wanted me to wait. This was January, so they wanted me to wait until like March or April when he would already be 4 or 5 months old, and I was like, no, you're gonna see him in like a week. And so they got me in because they have to redo the audiology test to confirm, and that's what they did. And from that point forward, we had everything in place that was needed, and we've been involved with early intervention since that day. He's going to be 2 in November, and we got right on track for cochlear implants, but we also learned American Sign Language. And
We're still learning.
Yeah, we're still learning, so we're not perfect. And we knew he was going to get implants, but our biggest thing is that we always want our son to be able to communicate with us, what he wants, what he needs, and Sign gives us that, because right now his hearing is only that of a 6-month-old because he didn't hear since he was born.
I just think I want to touch on, we were very busy, and we still are very busy a lot of the time. It has eased up as he has gotten older, but at the beginning...
We had a regular case manager, our occupational therapist, and a speech therapist. The speech therapist at that point was kind of just there as an involvement. We only met with her a couple of times, but also Everett had a side preference that we had to correct. So the
right side of his head was pretty flat, because he preferred that side, which actually his right side he is more hard of hearing in.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that's why he preferred that side. So we had to correct that physically, and then he had to have hearing aids.
And we were able to correct that without a helmet as well. So that was just a lot of diligence.
Yep. So, I mean, the deaf community, like I said earlier, is wonderful. There is a ton of resources, and we did some things. But again, this past year, 2020, was the whole year of his development, and we missed out on being able to have him interact with other deaf children and participate in, you get taught how to read books to your kids that are deaf, because it's not like, I can't pick up a book like this and just read it to Ev. He doesn't focus. He's not going to look at it. He doesn't care about it. It's not interesting to him, except for to tear the pages. So you have to be taught how to read a book in sign language and how to engage with your child, because we're blessed with the ability to hear. Also, everything that went into him getting his processors, his cochlear implants, you have to go to so many appointments, and you're seeing a bajillion doctors. You have to see audiology, you have to see ENT, you have to see eye doctors. We
were seeing several doctors
genetics.
weekly. We were busy.
Yeah. On top of that, we were taking a college level class for American Sign Language, which Gaudet University through the Family Sign Language program here in Massachusetts is amazing. It's 100% free, and everything that we do is been free, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. When our son got his official diagnosis, the director of the program that runs Massachusetts reached out to me personally to talk to me and told me his son was born deaf, and it's been wonderful as far as that stuff goes, but it's also extremely difficult as parents to a child with a disability when everyone around us the people around us, their children are not disabled, and they don't necessarily understand the difficulties of a day in and day out child who has a disability. Everett doesn't just wake up in the morning and jump out of bed and get to be a normal kid. He needs his processors. He struggles with eating. He has sensory problems. And it's stuff that we actively as parents have to work on every single day with him. We have a wonderful team that helps us, but day in and day out, it's really us.
It really can be difficult, especially if we are out and about at events, because I think most people do it out of genuine, like, they want to help, but because they're not in the situation like we are, it almost comes off as
why don't you do it like this?
It's just they ask a lot of questions as if we haven't tried to do those things. So for instance, like Cassie was saying, he has a hard time eating, and sometimes people will recommend things that we've already done, and again, I understand that it comes from like a genuine kindness, but from our point of view, it's just like, we are already parents. We were already parents. We know how to raise children. It just so happens that Everett has difficulties that we have to manage as we go along. And it's not that we don't want advice from anyone, because that's not the case. I think it's so difficult that and it's a daily struggle that at some point it's just like, please, just let us figure it out.
I mean, if there's people in this community and YouTube that have raised a deaf child, or know somebody close to you that's raised a deaf child, or is raising a deaf child, or someone with some kind of sensory problems, please reach out. I would love to talk to an adult or a parent who I can relate to and talk about those things, because every child is different and none of them come without challenges, whether they have disabilities or not. Children are hard, and no one claims that they're not, though some people pretend like their children are angels and never do anything wrong and they're the easiest children in the world, which we all know is a crock of shit. But I would love to hear from those people, and I've joined communities on Facebook, and I attend like events, or I try my best to, though it's hard because I'm a full-time working person who has a ton of things on their plate. Amidst all of this, it's the same time that Tony and I decided that we were going to start keto. It's the same time that our daughter is 3 and terrible 2s is a joke. It's 3 that's really the worst. And, you know, Tony went back to school and I'm working full time and we're learning sign language and we're still going to every single doctor's appointment for our son while also trying to still manage and attend to our other children appropriately and efficiently. So
I think us having Everett and having the experiences with him that we have, it kind of gave us an appreciation for our own lives, and that's why I feel as though we feel like we need to better ourselves constantly and try at least be the best version of ourselves that we can be, even though it is a daily struggle.
And I think we both recognize and acknowledge we're doing the best we can with what we've been given. We work at it every single day, and how can I expect my children to live their best life and to thrive and be successful if the image they have is of someone who is not putting their best foot forward every single day? And I think that also speaks to why we started this, why we chose and why we choose every day to share our lives, though some people might not care to listen, is like we just hope that, you know, we can show everyone like this is real life. Like, it's ugly, it's messy, and it's not simple. And I think it's so easy for us to look at people and say, well, you shouldn't say that raising your child is a struggle. Well, okay, what are you taking? And please tell me how it's not a struggle to you. Because any child, like I said, again, disability, no disability, it doesn't matter. And no day is always a walk in the park. And especially to all the parents who have literally been everything to their children through this past year, like, we all deserve awards.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
obviously 2020 was tough for everyone.
Yeah, and so to all of you who choose to get up every single day and like give it your all, goodness gracious, like, good job.
But I mean, as far as Everett goes, I think right now we're just trying to continue our sign language and get up on that. And we still struggle with his eating, which is something that we are working towards. We do see the feeding clinic to help with that as well, because and they had some good ideas, and it's stuff that we're implementing. He does, like Cassie said, he does have sensory issues within his mouth or throat area that does cause difficulty for eating solids, really. And so that is something that we deal with, but we don't necessarily know for certain if that is attributed to his deafness, or he's just, if the deafness makes him like have a sensory overload, or if that is just him.
He could just have a sensory input problem. We don't really know. But it's the most frustrating thing in the world when, as parents, we have done everything humanly possible that we possibly can think of. We've tried every idea that's been given to us, and it's frustrating when other parents judge you or look at you and say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? No, Susie, I haven't tried it.
Or it's like, oh, well, when my kid was this, I tried this, or I did this and it worked. And I'm like,
well, that's great. My son is different than your son and has different challenges. And, you know, with Everett, he grows and changes every day, and he improves every single day. We're constantly hearing from everyone, and I understand that it's good intentions. So no one get their panties in a twist. But at the end of the day, my child is not your child. And please don't assume that I haven't already tried to do what you're requesting of me. We have tried every puff. We have tried every vegetable, every fruit, every canned thing of meat. We have pureed foods, fruits. We've done it. We've mushed it up. We've let it be ripe. And you know what? At the end of the day, we have to deal with the problem, because then our child, where we don't want him to think that food is awful and not enjoyable, is vomiting everywhere. So what do? Do I give him what I know he eats so he's well fed? Or do I try to jump through all these hoops because society says that he should be eating table foods by now? So what? Make him vomit everything that he actually ate? So now my son is malnourished and has a growing problem because I'm convinced that I have to cram like scrambled eggs down his throat? No, keep your puffs. I'm not giving them to him. Sorry.
As you can tell, we're very passionate about this, but it's not for negative reasons. It's just when people have these conversations with us, it assumes that we're ignorant of the situation, when these are situations that we have already dealt with previous children. It just so happens that with Everett, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah. Everett's taught us a lot. Hands down. I can complain about anything because, again, I think I've said it already a couple of times. It's being a parent is hard, but we know what we sign up for, right? But he's also taught us just so much. Like, again, I'm going to get emotional, but like, my child is so strong and he's so resilient, and that's not us, that's him. And at the end of the day, like, he's gonna face adversity, but he has like the strongest people in his corner, and he himself is the strongest. And he really has taught us that we can literally handle anything that life throws at us, and he can too. So I'm so grateful for these lessons, and I look back at like feeling, guilty, or how I felt as a mom about my son, like, having a disability, and look at it now, and I'm like, I'm so excited to see where things go for him, because just because he is deaf, it doesn't mean that any more doors are closed for him, because we as parents have given him everything we possibly can, and we'll continue to do that with everything that we have in us. So
Yeah.
that's that.
I mean, we would like to know, honestly, if you guys do have any questions, like about the cochlear implants, how they work, how we got involved with sign class, and all those things. I mean, we're open to answering those questions, because we just want people to be more informed and be more accepting of deaf culture into the community. So, please, if you do have questions, put them down in the comments.
Or message
us on our personal platforms.
Yeah, whatever works. I mean, we're just here to share our life, and Everett and our other children also are this huge part of our lives. And realistically, his birth was really a pivotal moment in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that came with his diagnosis meant that everything was going to change. So we're totally open to hear questions. I obviously love to talk about the topic.
And then obviously, by chance, if someone does end up having a child who is hard of hearing, please, by all means, reach out, because there are so many communities online, but it's hard to reach out to those that you don't know for that support to try and lean on. So it would be beneficial. Reach out. We'll try and help as best as we can.
Yeah, for sure.
Let us know if you want to see more videos like this. We can talk about Ev and all the different things that we do with him, and
we'll just vent.
But if you did like the video, it would really help the channel if you hit that thumbs up and hit the red subscribe button. Otherwise, I guess we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Have a good one.